earlier this week, a federal judge temporarily blocked Arkansas's 10 Commandments in Schools law. So Arkansas is one of the handful of states in the South, obviously, Bible Belt, that have been trying to shove Christian nationalism in their schools. Now, Senate Bill 433, later named Act 573, had been signed into law in April. In addition to mandating that public schools put up the 10 Commandments, it also required all public buildings to put up a poster reading, "In God We Trust." Now, I mean, that's very, very, I don't know, unconstitutional. And so, of course, one of the arguments that the bill's backers insist is, hey, look, none of this has anything to do with promoting religion. So wait, you're taking these very, very religious documents and you're saying that that's, and requiring them to be posted in public places, but you're saying, well, I mean, but that's nothing to do with promoting religion. These religious documents being posted everywhere in places where you can't really ignore them. How? I mean, Republican Alyssa Brown, for example, she's a representative in Arkansas, says, we're not telling every student that they have to believe in this God, but we are upholding what those historical documents mean, and that the historical national motto. I mean, that works if you're stupid, if you're not paying attention to history, if you don't know what you're talking about. Look, the Founding Fathers, it should be pretty obvious. If you have ever read the Constitution, you would know that they didn't exactly stick the 10 Commandments in there. They just didn't. That's it. I mean, it's not in there. And as far as, well, our national motto, our historical national motto, "In God We Trust," it is historic. It has been here since the beginning, except that it wasn't. That was actually declared the national motto back in 1956 as a response to godless communism. Yeah. So, again, there's nothing really historical about either of these things in the context of American history. They are historical, of course, but in the context of mandating that these things be stuffed in public schools, that argument doesn't really hold up. Okay? No, what this is about trying to inject Christian nationalism into our public schools. That's it. And of course, that would be unconstitutional. Period. Now, on Monday, U.S. District Court Judge Timothy L. Brooks, who's an Obama appointee, so of course they're going to rage about that. Obama! Okay. He issued a preliminary injunction, putting a hold on the law for now in the districts attended by the students involved in the case. Now, of course, that's because there are no more nationwide injunctions, and so it only has an impact in this area. I'll get to that later. But in his decision, he rightly pointed out that this was basically part of a broader scheme to try to put a specific religion into public schools, which happens to be evangelical Christianity. Okay, 45 years ago, he writes, the Supreme Court struck down a 10 Commandments law nearly identical to the one the Arkansas General Assembly passed earlier this year. That precedent remains binding on this court and renders Arkansas Act 573 plainly unconstitutional. Why would Arkansas pass an obviously unconstitutional law? Most likely because the state is part of a coordinated strategy among several states to inject Christian religious doctrine into public school classrooms. Look, this guy knows what he's talking about, all right? Brooks, he knows. He sees it. It's very, very obvious. Now, he says these states view the past decade of rulings by the Supreme Court on religious displays in public places as a signal that the court would be open to revisiting its precedent on religious displays in the public school context. Brooks then noted that while the Supreme Court could theoretically reverse all of these rulings, for now, the law is unconstitutional and has to be stopped. Period. Now, the rest, he says, is beyond the court's control. Now, what makes this really interesting is that the ruling completely dismantled all of the arguments that the state's lawyers were making in this case to put 10 Commandments all over school. Now, for example, they said that the families had no legal standing because their supposed injuries were, quote, merely speculative or hypothetical. Now, Brooks pointed out that that is not the case. Arkansas classrooms, he noted, will have all the donations they will need to purchase the Christian posters, and everybody knows what the posters are going to say since it's literally in the bill. So you don't have to wait for the poster to come out and to be posted somewhere for you to object to it. Okay? Brooks wrote that the commandments themselves are the problem because they send a message to the plaintiff's children that they do not belong in their own school community because they do not subscribe to the state's preferred religious doctrine, and said that it was disingenuous to pretend the families needed to wait to see that the posters on the walls before they could even complain about them. Because again, they already know what's in it. The state offers no examples of mitigating context either. Perhaps the state imagines, he writes, that in a math classroom, the surrounding context of equations would be mitigating. Or in a French classroom, photographs of the Eiffel Tower and French greetings would be mitigating. Such speculation is pointless. Furthermore, it is telling that the state's asserted secular purpose for displaying the Ten Commandments is to teach school children about the historical significance of the Ten Commandments to our nation's history, legal system, and education. Yet, the state has never mandated the display of any foundational secular documents of unquestionable importance to our nation heritage, such as, for example, the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. That's correct. That has never been mandated in school, even though those are literally our founding documents. Those historic documents, he says, need not be displayed. The only items Arkansas believes a child must see every day in school to convey a proper sense of this nation's rich history are A, a poster with the words, "In God We Trust," and 2, a poster of the Ten Commandments. I mean, that is just brilliant, okay? I love this decision. This judge skewered the crap out of this bill and the ridiculous arguments in favor of it. Now, the plaintiff did bring some expert witnesses. One of them is Dr. Stephen K. Green, who had basically been forced to explain that the founding fathers supported a wall of separation between church and state, which is true, and that the founding documents were not based on the Ten Commandments, and also the fact that there was no longstanding historical practice of putting the Ten Commandments in public schools. So why shove them in there in the first place? Now, how did the state respond to that testimony? They didn't. Not really. They didn't really respond to those questions. What they did was cite case law instead of historical sources because they don't have historical sources. Even though that argument, and again, the fact that they couldn't cite historical sources is what, undermines their argument, okay? Because again, their argument was the Ten Commandments have to be shown in schools because of the historical significance of them to the United States government. Boom. Destroyed. I think we'll call that a wrap. Okay. Look, here's the thing about documents like these, whether it be the Ten Commandments or the Bible. I'm actually in favor of showing them in school, but only in the context of, for example, comparative religion classes that are elective. You want to learn about that in school? Here's a class explaining what they believe and maybe comparing that to what other religions believe. Maybe have a class that combines the belief systems and compares and contrasts Christianity versus Islam and Judaism. Okay, the 3 Abrahamic religions. That would be a fascinating class. I probably would have taken it. Okay, because I've always had an interest in lore. Okay, and that's what I view these religious texts as. Is this is the lore of this belief system. Okay, and look, maybe even a history of Christianity class if it's an elective. I think that's totally fine because for me, having those documents in there in the schools. The context really matters. The context matters. But here's the thing. That is not the goal here. Education is not the goal. It's indoctrination. Look, at the end of the day, Arkansas passed an illegal law that they knew was blatantly unconstitutional. Then they made up details about American history in order to try to defend said illegal law. And while practically bragging about the real plan behind this entire thing. And that was, of course, to institute Christian nationalism in our schools. And now, apparently, they're shocked Pikachu face that a judge actually ruled against them based on the merits of the case, their own arguments. Look, here's the thing. It is a small win, and let's be honest. And again, that's because of the lack of nationwide injunctions here, thanks to the Trump regime. But nonetheless, it is a win. It shows you that their arguments and their cases are easily defeated because of how completely unconstitutional they are. Okay? And look, that said, it's only a small win because you still have a lot of schools in Arkansas that, yes, have these posters that will be going up, that are already up. School has already started in many cases. And again, it's a lack of nationwide injunctions, which means, and this case should show you, that if families were to stand up all across the state and challenge these laws, or challenge this law specifically in court, there's a very good chance that they will win. So, and get these unconstitutional, very unconstitutional laws blocked. But until that happens, Christian nationalists will continue to attempt to do what they're doing and push Christian nationalism in schools by turning those schools into de facto churches. And that is something that every good American, religious or not, should be opposing. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe with the bell icon in order to get notified whenever a new video is released. And if you want to support independent, progressive media through this difficult time where it seems like everybody is shutting down, you can become a member on our YouTube page, you can become a subscriber on Facebook, or you can go to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf. Thank you.